After the Big Path Girl story, I didn't really want to read anything that might be too serious, so I decided to try this book. It's called Gods and Comics by Kat Cho. So the main character is Korean American and she lives in Florida. She is 17 and in high school, and she's recently started working on a webcomic or webtoon that has become extremely popular. Like, she actually started it as a way of dealing with her own grief because her grandmother recently passed away, and her grandmother was really fond of like stories of old Korean gods and stuff like that, and she told Grace, that's the main character's name, a number of these stories. So kind of as a way of remembering her and paying a tribute to that memory, Grace has taken those stories and made a comic out of it, which features these two gods who were incarnated, I guess, as human beings. And it's gained her, well, she's writing it anonymously, but it's gained her a great deal of popularity, and it's something that she's starting to quite enjoy. However, like, that doesn't mean that she's not still having like issues in her personal life with trying to handle her grief. Like, there's all this trying to push it aside and everything, and things get even messier when, out of the blue, one day she runs into this guy who looks exactly like the male protagonist of her story. And she discovers soon after that he doesn't just look like her male protagonist, he is her male protagonist. And in fact, a lot of the characters in her stories now appear to be coming to life, like including possibly some of the not so good characters, like the bad guy who she was only just beginning to introduce. And so the story follows Grace as she tries to figure out what to do with all these unexpected but possibly not entirely unwelcome changes in her life. So let's see. I think this story struck me as a very typical high school romance story, like with some minor fantastical elements that don't really change the way it comes across. Like, it reminded me very strongly of the Korean romance like comics that one of my cousins really likes to read online. And in general, I'm pretty ambivalent towards this kind of story, so I don't really have any particularly strong feelings, but it was fairly relaxing, like, I guess probably a good follow-up to the really grim story that I read before this. But I think one thing that I would have liked to see more of was like a more thorough explanation of the Korean myths and stuff that the story supposedly drew from. Like, I don't know anything about Korean mythology, so I don't really know what the stories attached to the gods in her comic were. Like, I don't know any of the details, and there were a lot of things that really confused me. So, like, for example, the two gods that were the main characters of her comic seemed like they were supposed to be a couple. Like, she even says that the goddess was his main love interest, but for some reason when both of them show up in the modern world, there's never any reference back to this pre-existing relationship. Like, both characters go on to almost immediately fall for other people, and I mean, I get that the author wanted to pair the male protagonist with the main character, but it's kind of weird to me that it never acknowledges that the two gods were ever together in the first place. Like, I guess maybe in the original myths they weren't actually in love and they did fall in love with other people, but like, I don't know, because it doesn't actually tell you like any of those details. Like, it only kind of hints at the bare bones of a lot of that folklore, and I think having those details would have provided much better context to the story as a whole. Like, but because of their absence, I guess, I think it made things like the relationship lines and everything feel a little bit superficial to me.